Well, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I'm not too loud, am I?
We can hear you just
Uh-oh,
fine, but
yeah.
I am
Listen,
not
even
going to miss the opportunity to introduce my
Oh, come on. You
clone.
don't have to now.
We've been together for 2 days now. Most of you have already been here, so you know Carin. We do so many things the same. It's
Exactly.
absolutely eerie. You know, we eat the same, we talk the same, we have the same stuff, the same. And you're left-handed, I just found out.
You're left-handed?
Yes.
Oh, look it. I asked her a question today about something, and I said, this is going to determine if we are actually from the same DNA. Because everything has been like this, the same, the same, the same. And she answered perfectly.
And we just met Thursday night.
Really, literally, this is the first time we've met. But it's so funny that we're just so on board with the same things. It's just amazing. So I love having
Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kathy. Well, good afternoon, everyone. As I said, again, most of you, was anybody not here yesterday? Oh, see, there, James, okay. Oh, right then. All right, so we have a few people. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Carin Lynch. I am actually a cooking class instructor at the Wildwood Lifestyle Center. My husband, Ron, you want to stick your head out? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? He's in the kitchen. Ron. There he is. My husband, Ron, he is my right-hand man. He is my sous chef and chief bottle washer. But we are actually the North American division directors for Light Ministry. Oh, we took down our sign there, but Light Ministry. Light is the Lay Institute for Global Health Training. It is a ministry that goes worldwide. We train people in principles of health to be able not only to help themselves and their family, but to reach people for the kingdom of God. Because you know what? We understand that when people are suffering, it is very hard to focus on, a relationship with your Lord. But if we can relieve suffering, as Jesus did, didn't he? Jesus preached, taught, he healed more than he preached. How's that? And so it's because he wanted a relationship with others. He wanted to reach people. And that is when there's that saying, and I said it yesterday, if you were at some of my seminars yesterday, that people don't care how much you know until what? They know how much you care. We need to care about people. We need to care about people like Jesus did, right? So to tell you a couple more things about me, I have a certificate in plant-based nutrition from Cornell University's Center for Nutritional Studies. I also am a graduate of the Ruby Culinary Arts program, specifically focusing on forks over knives. If you're familiar with the movie Forks Over Knives is a documentary that really, let's say, validates and proves how a plant-based diet can change your health and change your life, reversing disease, preventing disease. So I was able to take that program to hone my culinary skills. How's that? So I am a chef graduate from Ruby Culinary Arts program. So today we're going to do a fully plant-based cooking class. Now I hope that you can understand that plant-based food can taste delicious. I have a motto. My motto is simple, nutritious, and delicious. Simple, because we want to use simple foods, and we want to make them easy. Believe it or not, as much as I love to cook, I don't want to be in the kitchen all day. I'd like to cook and spend time with my friends and my family. So I don't want to be slave to a thing. Now, I've been to India before, and it's very interesting because when we were in India, we stayed with a lot of people. We did mission work there for 5 weeks, going all over the south of India. And we would go to people's homes who were hosting us. And the wife would get up at like 6 o'clock in the morning and make breakfast. And we'd probably eat about 8, okay? Then she would stay in there and prepare lunch. We'd probably eat about 12 or 1, okay? And then she would stay and prepare dinner, and we would probably eat dinner about 5 or 6. And then she'd clean up, and she'd be done at 8 o'clock at night. That's 14 hours in the kitchen. Okay, I said my life can never be like that. It's like I said, I love to cook. But more importantly that I love to cook, I love to share what I know with other people. I think that not only is it important to learn how to make simple recipes that taste good and are healthy for us, But I think it's even more important to let people know why we're making these changes, what's important about these things. So today I'm going to try to give you some nutritional information. Now, somebody was very kind at Wildwood, and they typed up these little cards for me, because I always like to have a little note just to remind me of what I want to talk about, because trust me, I'm all over the place, right? And I want to make sure I give you the information that I want. But I never use cards, and they kind of typed them kind of small, so you'll have to bear with me. This is my first outing on the cards, okay? So we'll see how they work. So, but without further ado, of course, what we like to do is we like to ask the Lord to be with us. So why don't we bow our heads and we'll ask the Lord to be with us. Gracious Heavenly Father, thank you so much, Lord, for this opportunity on this Sunday, Lord, this beautiful Sunday here in Florida, to get to know you a little better through nutrition, Lord. And so we love you, we thank you, and we praise you for this day. Thank you for these people that have so kindly come and shared some of their Sunday with me. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. All right, so today we're going to start with breakfast. Now, I guess I should say before we get started, and you may know this statistic, but did you know that 94 to 96% of all disease, we're talking starting from a cold, all the way to maybe stage 4 cancer and anything in between, okay, is 96 is lifestyle related. Well, what do you mean lifestyle related? It means that only 4 to 6% is genetics. That means that, yes, could a child be born and maybe their pancreas doesn't work and they are type 1 diabetic? Yes, a child could be born like that. That's a genetic issue. However, most disease, 94 to 96%, are actually our lifestyle, how we live. Now, we may have a genetic propensity. A genetic propensity means that, yes, down the road somewhere, maybe, your grandmother had diabetes. Your mom had diabetes. And now you're in your 30s or 40s, and you're like, uh-oh, Well, guess what? The answer is you don't need to get diabetes. Why is that? It's because lifestyle is what triggers. If you think about this, and this is a pretty common thing, if lifestyle is a gun, right? If genetics are a gun, right? Your lifestyle is what pulls the trigger. You see, the gun is not dangerous unless we pull the trigger, isn't it? So the problem is that we have had such a radical movement away from healthy living. Even back a few centuries ago, people didn't have the conveniences that we have right now, right? They worked in their fields. 70% of the United States before the Industrial Revolution were farmers. 70% of the population were farmers. And of course the Industrial Revolution made things a little bit easier, made things a little bit more convenient, and then what happened? We got a little lazier. We just didn't get the movement, the exercise, eating the healthy things, and things just progressed. We'll talk a little bit about those things as we go along. But 94 to 96%, like I said, is lifestyle. But let's even break that down even more. Did you realize that 60 to 70% of your lifestyle diseases, which is basically all disease, right, is nutrition related? It's related directly to what you eat. Wow, what a huge statistic. Therefore, what my goal is to really help people, embrace and transition to a healthier way of life. Every little step we take is a day closer to our goal, right? And so we just do little steps at a time. So today we're going to do a lot of recipes. I hope you enjoy them, because the best part of the cooking class, what do you think is? Well, they're trained here. Boy, they're trained. That's exactly what it is. I hope you came with your appetites. So we're going to start with breakfast. Now, breakfast is your most important meal of the day. I think we've all heard that probably somewhere. But breakfast, well, they think that we should eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a queen, and dinner like a pauper. Well, let me break that down for you. Do you know that the calories that you ingest for breakfast are gone by the end of the day? Now, the funniest, interesting thing is that many times people want to lose weight. That's a big thing because we have a pretty unhealthy lifestyle, don't we, in this country? Not everybody, but of course, there are a lot of people who are always trying to lose weight and be fit. The problem is that what is the easiest meal to skip? Breakfast, absolutely. You know, people are like, oh, I don't need that breakfast, you know? So what happens? Well, they skip breakfast. Now remember, I told you all the calories that we eat at breakfast are gone by the end of the day. So they skip breakfast, and what happens about 9 o'clock? Hungry. What do you think they do? They snack a little, they take a little what? By the time lunch comes around, they are ravenous. And what are they doing? They're buying anything they can get their hands on or eating anything they can get their hands on. Not necessarily the best choices because their little mechanism in their brain is saying, just get me anything, I'm starving, right? Because you haven't gotten your metabolism going. You know, you haven't gotten your blood glucose getting started to energize your cells. Your brain hasn't gotten the food it has needed. So what happens? Well, then, of course, the rest of the day, you start eating, right? And by the end of the day, you're eating this big dinner and you're done. Okay. So what happens? You ate all your calories all day. People that skip breakfast eat more calories during the day than people who eat a large breakfast. It's a known fact. So what do we need to do? We need to eat our largest meal first. Now people say, oh, but I'm not hungry in the morning. Well, listen, let's go through the thing. You're going to eat your largest meal first. You're going to eat like a king. Your most calories should be in your breakfast meal. Your second best meal should be your lunch. You're going to eat that like a queen. Now, you know what? We have a joke, Ron. Ron always says he's the head of the household, but I'm the neck, and the neck moves the head, right? Well, does the queen kind of get the king going? I think the queen has a pretty good power, right? When you're looking at the king and the queen. So the queen is pretty important. So you know what? You're going to probably eat a pretty decent lunch. Now we eat dinner like a pauper. I have to tell you, sometimes the paupers don't have money for food, do they? They're paupers. So what happens? We should probably eat not even our lightest meal, but maybe even skip dinner for our best nutrition. Now people say, oh, what do you mean, Carin, skip dinner? I'm going to tell you that there's many statistics talking about, and you've probably heard like intermittent fasting. That's like a new term, you know? But there has been research done and counsel on this for 150 years about how, skipping your third meal is best for most people. Now, I don't want to tell you every person needs to skip, because people with high metabolism, people who may lose weight, quickly, or people who do very physical jobs. Because you see, I doubt, anybody here a farmer and farms every single solitary day as a profession? No. Okay, because if you were a farmer, 3 meals a day is probably pretty important for you because you are physically exerting yourself. However, most of us are probably sitting at a desk. We're either in school, right? Table 1? In school? All right. Maybe we're retired. We're getting around, we're doing our thing, but we're not really killing ourselves, are we? And of course, people in the work range are probably a lot of times more sedentary. So, skipping our third meal is really a very helpful way, because guess what? This goes back to breakfast now. If you skip your third meal, first of all, it helps your digestion. How does it do that? Well, your stomach is the most overworked organ in your body. Listen, I'm going to give the heart a lot of credit too, because the heart never stops, right? But it's built for that. It's a muscle. This stomach is an organ, right? And this organ here is, working constantly. It takes about 4 to 5 hours to digest your food, to get it to where we can absorb the nutrients in the small intestines, we can get rid of the waste and all of that. So we really want to make sure that we eat, if we're going to eat a light dinner or no dinner's better, but if you ate a light dinner, maybe some soup or maybe some popcorn and a smoothie, something very light, just maybe to take the edge off. We need to make sure we have enough time between 4 hours at least before we go to bed, okay? So we need to make sure we're eating our meals, approximately 5 hours apart, and then of course 4 to 5 hours before we go to bed. That's our best thing. Unfortunately, we have a habit of people in this country sitting in front of TV and need a little snack. Maybe if it's a healthy snack, maybe some nuts, maybe a little granola or something. But we keep the stomach going. If the blood needs to go to the stomach to work hard to digest, it is not going to the rest of our body to repair the cells and restore the cells and regenerate the cells to be able to be, to combat disease and our health. And so I want to let you know that if we did skip dinner or we eat a very, very light early dinner, guess what? The next morning we are hungry. And that's when we should be hungry to eat our largest meal. So we hope that that's kind of like an idea of why we should not only have, a large breakfast, but that's the science behind it. And why maybe we should eat a very light dinner. We hear this phrase, the king, queen, and pauper, but now we know kind of why. So without further ado, let's make some breakfast things. Today, we passed out some recipes. I want to let you know that I am so thankful that I have been able to author a cookbook. It's called Plant-Based Made Simple. Ta-da! Well, ta-da, here I am, right? And it's just been published and printed in September. This is actually the first venue that I'm actually sharing my cookbook publicly. How's that? It is on Amazon, but you have to pay shipping on that, right? So it's on Amazon, and we've sold a lot of pre-copies at the... You just saying hi? I'm talking about the cookbook. So anyway, please, you're welcome to thumb through it if you're interested. It would just help us in our ministry. It's part of the way we can kind of support ourselves as well. But any recipe that I do today, I gave to you as well. Some of them are in the cookbook. Some of them are ones that didn't make it in the cookbook. And so that's okay, because that means I have another reason to write another one someday, right? So we're going to start with the corn and oat waffles. Corn and oat waffles, it should be our first recipe on our thing. So we're going to start. Listen, I remember what did I say my catchphrase was? Simple, nutritious, and delicious. Okay? I'm going to start with a simple recipe, everything in the blender. Now, you can't go wrong with that, can you? I'm not complicated. I'm telling you, I'm not complicated. So we're going to start with corn and oat waffles. We're going to start with 3.5 cups of oats. I'm just using quick oats here, but you could use whole oats if you want, rolled oats. It doesn't work very well with steel cut or oat groats, trust me. They don't grind as well. You're going to have a little grittiness to your waffle. But I'm going slow here because I have a tendency to be messy. So. I should tell you a little secret. Oh, my husband left. Okay, he didn't hear me. So I'll tell you a little secret. Did you ever watch the Muppets? The Muppet Show? Well, back in the old Muppet Show, they had a new Muppet Show, but the old Muppet Show had one of the characters was called the Swedish Chef. Did you ever see the Swedish Chef? Swedish Chef kind of threw food around a lot. He was all all over the kitchen. My husband calls me the Swedish Chef. That's why I was trying to be careful with our oats, okay? All right, I'm going to use today a little bit of corn grits. Now, we're in the South here, so corn grits you can get. Sometimes I go places and I don't even know what corn grits are. But you could use cornmeal in this recipe as well. I think the corn just brings not only a good texture to the waffle, but a nice flavor too. It blends very nicely with our oats. This will make it depends on what the size of your waffle maker is. But if the round ones, if you have like the Belgian waffle maker, it probably makes at least 3. I think it works out to be 3.5, to be perfectly honest with you. But let's just say 3 for all intents and purposes, because I don't want you to, but those are big, those are big, nice big waffles. All right, I'm going to use some vanilla flavoring. I'm going to use a little sweetener. Today I'm going to use raw blue agave. I like raw blue agave. You could use maple syrup in here. You could use dates as a sweetener. You could use, and this is why I get called the Swedish Chef, because I'm a little klutzy. No, thank you, Don. Thank you, Don. Anyway, I use raw blue agave because I think it has a very neutral flavor. Sometimes we're looking for something like honey that flavors a certain way. Sometimes we're looking for things like, maple syrup that flavors a certain way. But we're going to use a little raw blue agave. I like it because it's sweet, but it's neutral. It doesn't really have a flavor, right? I'm going to put a little salt in there. When we make things that are savory, we want to make sure that sweet, we also want to give a little savory to balance that out. And we're going to use a little olive oil. Now, you don't have to use, if you don't want to use oil, you could use about a quarter cup of ground nuts. In fact, in my cookbook, I give the option of that. You can use the olive oil. And then we just have some water. If you wanted to make this even a little bit different, you could use soy milk or a plant-based milk, but I'm like, we want to save money too. So use water. It works perfectly. Now, one of the things I do at home a lot, and I forgot to put it on the recipe, so we forgot to put it on the tray. But if you like a lighter waffle, a little bit where it'll cook a little faster, you can use some baking powder. I use about a teaspoon for this, so if you want to add that on there, I want to say it makes a better waffle. Today we didn't do it, so the waffles will be a little bit, we have to kind of cook them a little longer because the fact to get them done on the inside because they don't have that leavening in it. So they're going to be a little crispy, but you don't mind. I'm sure you won't mind. You'll get the good flavor. How's that? All right. So proper blender etiquette. First of all, having a good blender doing plant-based cooking is very, very important. It is probably the most used item in your kitchen. In fact, I call it my best friend in the kitchen. I call this my second best friend in the kitchen. I call him my second best friend in the kitchen. But no, honestly, it's really close race. Honestly. Actually, yeah, all right. I have to call it the second. All right, second best friend. Yes, exactly. There you go. Honestly, having a good blender. If you have a good blender at home, I'm very partial to the Vitamix. It has been my blender of choice throughout my career of cooking. But if you had something like, the thing about the Vitamix, I call it the Cadillac of all blenders. Now, who doesn't want to ride in a Cadillac, right? It drives like a Cadillac, but guess what? It costs like a Cadillac, too. That's the problem, right? So what you can do is, this is ladies, this is what I say. Now, I'm not trying to, I can only relate to the ladies on this part, but guys, just listen up. When your birthday comes along and the family, the grandkids, the kids say, oh, Mom, Grandma, what do you want for your husband? What do you want for your birthday? How about just give me some money toward the Vitamix? Listen, you have a birthday, Mother's Day, you have Valentine's Day, you've got Christmas. What else? There's another holiday. Anniversary. 5 holidays. Bing, 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 you got your Vitamix, okay? Just telling you it's easy, okay? Besides, Costco actually runs them very affordably, too. All right, so we're going to blend this. Now, you want to make sure proper blender etiquette. You want to make sure everything is on low because you do not want to be the recipient of showers of blessings, because I have been. Ron has had to clean off the ceiling on more than one occasion, so don't do what I do. Check your blender out, make sure you start on low and work your way up. How's that? So we'll get that turned on. And that should do it. We're really just trying to grind up a little bit and just get that mixed up together. I'm going to give this to Ron so he can make our waffles. So look at how much simpler can that be? It is no harder than adding water to a pre-mix. By the way, what? No mix for Ron? Oh no, it's no match for you? No. Oh, you're much. Oh. He was telling me that I was like, what are you talking about? He's saying that the blender is no match for him. He's much better than the blender. I have to say he is. Praise the Lord. I have been really blessed with the person that completes me. For where I lack, he brings to the table, and where he falls short, I fill it in. We're so thankful God has put us together. Now, what was I going to say? See, he distracted me, and I forgot what I was going to tell you. Waffles. Something that I want to tell you is that, I'm not going to get into cholesterol, and there's only so much I can tell you, but buying processed foods that have like dehydrated eggs in them and dehydrated milk and things like that are very dangerous for us health-wise. The cholesterol is like exemplified. And so there's a lot of research on that. So we don't want things that have powdered milk in it and powdered eggs and things like that, powdered cheese. We don't. So like I said, I don't have time to tell you everything, but because we want to move on. Because some people might want to see the Super Bowl, right? So we're going to listen, we need to top these waffles with something delicious, right? We are going to do a fruit sauce. Now, the thing about this fruit sauce that I like is that it's not just for waffles, right? Of course, you can put it on pancakes too, but it's great for desserts. And this doesn't have to be just like we make it at home, like chunky with the blueberries in it, or this, you can use any fruit you want in it. We've done apples, peaches, raspberries, blueberry, whatever. Whatever you like, you can put in here. But you know what you can do as well is if you prefer a syrup, just shoot that in the blender, blend it up, and now you've got a beautiful syrup. I've used it for like, if I've made like a nice vegan cheesecake, I've drizzled it on top. There's a million things you can do with it. Mix it in your oats or your hot cereal. There's so many things you can do. And this is great. This makes a good amount, the recipe. And so I'm actually doing 1.5 times because I wasn't sure how many people were coming. So we're probably making a little extra than normal. But this recipe, you can freeze. I love, and by the way, waffles. Go back to the waffles. I make waffles. I do a double batch at home. I make them and I freeze them. And then the day that I want to do, when I want to eat the waffle, I take it out the night before. I leave it in the the refrigerator to defrost. And then I just stick it in the oven or the toaster, depending on what I feel like, and it'll crisp up. The thing that you don't want to do when you freeze foods is you don't want to take them right out of the freezer into the oven. Like I do a lot of things with like maybe I make like some I call them unsausage patties and things like that. And the reason why I don't do that is because in order to bring the temperature up, to have that so it's, the temperature that you would like to eat it at, you really have to cook it a long time because it's frozen. And what happens is it dries it out. So what I do, 2 little tricks that I do is if I'm making a big batch that I'm going to freeze, I par cook them. I cook them mostly. If it's 15 minutes on each side or whatever, or if I make the waffles, I'll make them a little lighter, and then I will put them in the freezer, and then when I toast them, they're going to crisp up and brown just a little more anyway. Same thing with like the unsausages and things like that. If it's 15 minutes on each side, I do 12 minutes on each side, and I make sure I defrost it the night before, and that will save it from being too dry. So just a little tip. I like to throw in the tips, okay? Today we're going to do a blueberry fruit sauce. I do Lucas, are they your favorite? Because I love blueberry fruit sauce, so that's why I do it. And I almost couldn't find the blueberries, and then I found them. So, but yeah, you know what I'm using? I'm using frozen blueberries today. You can use fresh, but and I almost always say fresh is best. Almost always. There's probably like a couple things that I could tell you. You can go with the frozen, and it's no different, right? Frozen blueberries are picked at the peak of freshness. They are flash frozen and put in the freezer, right? So it's not blueberry season right now down here in South Florida, is it? No. Well, it's not blueberry season anywhere else either. Well, at least in the United States. So can you really get the best blueberries right now? It's really a gamble, right? Maybe, maybe not. They're tart, they're not tart. So you know what? We know that these are flash frozen at the peak of freshness. So they maintain almost all of their nutrition when they're flash frozen. So we're going to use frozen blueberries today. Anytime, you can have them at any season, right? So I'm going to start by putting them, and like I told you, I'm doing a super duper sized recipe here, so it looks like a lot, but that's because I wasn't sure how many folks were going to be here today. I should have known Super Bowl, right? Oh, oops, he jumped out. You saw that, right? We lost one. We have one blueberry casualty. All right. And what I'm going to do is, if you're following along with the recipe, let me get that here. So I was using for the recipe, it would be 5 cups of blueberries. We've got our water. We must be doing a double recipe here because I had 3 cups of water. I didn't set this tray up, my husband did. So we're going to use some sweetener. I'm going to use agave today. By the way, I'm using agave as our sweetener in all of our recipes today because I also like to be economical. You know, the church buys the food for us to do this cooking class, and so I wasn't going to buy honey for this one and maple syrup for this one. So I'm just using the agave today. But again, this is interchangeable with any sweetener that you choose to use. The other thing about agave, too, that I like is that it pours nicely out of the bowl. It's not as viscous and it's not as thick as honey. But we're going to talk about sweeteners when I talk about doing our dessert today. And I'll tell you a little bit about honey, some of the wonderful benefits of honey. But for easy, all-intensive purposes, we're going to do that. So, they didn't set this tray up correctly. Hey, Ron. Oh, I need a cup of water, filtered water. You can't get good help, can you? No, I'm kidding. All right, I'm joking. I hope you didn't hear that. All right, let's see. How do I turn this on? Okay. How do I turn this on? Power level. Okay. There we go. You know, I have one of these fancy induction things, but I haven't used it in so long, I don't remember how to do it. Okay, we got it on now. So what I'm doing is I'm going to just heat the blueberries in the water. There we go. Because we needed an extra half cup, and since you doubled this recipe, correct? Okay, so I needed an extra half cup. We just forgot to put it on there. Thank you.
Can your Vitamix do that?
No, my Vitamix can't do that. He's trouble, just so you know. All right, thank you. I'm just going to mix. Now, what I took is my thickener today is going to be cornstarch. You could use another starch. You could use potato starch. Sometimes I say don't use really arrowroot because arrowroot can be a little gooey. So I wouldn't use arrowroot starch. Maybe tapioca starch might be okay. But I'm just mixing this and making this it's called a cornstarch slurry. And the reason why I'm mixing this together is that cornstarch, when it's heated, will clump up right away. So I don't want to pour cornstarch directly into my thing here. So I like to pour it in once I heat everything up. But if I mix it with a little room temperature water, it will dissolve in there and it'll be fine and we can pour it in and we won't have any lumps. Don't do what I do sometimes. I've in a haste thrown it in and then all of a sudden I have little white clumpy things. That's where I learned that it makes really nice syrup because I threw it in the blender, zip, and that's how I figured out, oh, this makes a pretty good syrup. So I'd like to give that option, but that option was it was actually just from a mistake. But it worked out perfectly, and it was a nice option, right? So, all right, so we're just going to let that heat up. And then what we'll do is we're just going to mix in our cornstarch. Does anybody have any, by the way, if you have any questions, you absolutely raise your hand. I happily answer questions as I go along. Anybody? No questions. The shy group. Not really. I don't think so. I've met a lot of you already. Nobody's shy. Oh, James. Mm-hmm. Sure. Okay. Would be like the best to be able to think. Gotcha. Oh, yeah. Okay. That's a personal question. I can answer that personally for you. How's that? So, because you probably don't have, do you have a freezer? A little tiny, yeah. So this one would be something where if you wanted to make the fruit sauce, like the waffles, everything was not refrigerated. Nothing was refrigerated. So you could easily make the waffles if you had a waffle iron. By the way, my cousin, when I wrote the cookbook, I gave my family all a copy for Christmas. And my cousin said, Carin, can I make these as pancakes? I'm like, I never did that. I don't know. Try it and let me know. She said it came out great. So you could use that waffle mix, by the way, for pancakes too. That's what she said. I have not done that because my husband is like a waffle lover. By the way, he will never eat another frozen waffle again now that he's had these waffles. I get no break, right? I can't even buy a frozen waffle now because he loves this one so much. All right. Yeah, so James, we'll talk a little bit. I can see where I can kind of guide you on that. I don't mind at all. All right. We're going to do our next recipe. We are going to do, I have to let this heat up first, but I'm going to talk a little bit before we get this recipe. We are going to do a cream of broccoli soup. You should have that as an extra one. I last minute added that. Because I felt like it was like my menu was a little skimpy. And I said, let's add one more thing in there. So that's why it's separate and it's out of order. But we were going to do a cream of broccoli soup, and I want to talk a little bit about cream of broccoli soup and how we make that. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about a couple things with my, I had a card here. I wanted to give you some statistics, but what did I do with it? Well, I don't know what I did with it. Oh, well. Anyway, all right, but let's talk a little bit about salt, because I think that this is something I like to share with people as well. So I use, primarily for cooking, Himalayan pink salt. And I'll tell you why. You've heard of Himalayan pink salt, right? I'm going to say that, salt to me, I would tell you salt is very inexpensive to buy. Even if you buy a more artisan brand, you usually can buy it for a couple dollars, a few dollars, maybe it's $5. I buy a big, huge thing at Costco of Himalayan pink for $6-something, $6.29 or something. It was very cheap. I use Himalayan pink salt because of a few reasons. The first reason is it is mined about 5,000 feet below sea level. Well, you know what? It's 99.5% pure, let's say, which is really nice. So it's a mined salt. It's in the depths of the earth. So it's really, good purity to it. The second reason I use Himalayan pink salt is because it actually has 84 trace minerals in it. Now, trace minerals are minerals that we need to get in small amounts, but we must get them from outside sources, outside foods. Our body needs these to function, but we only need them in little amounts. It has 84 of them, okay? That's a big bonus, I think. Now, Himalayan pink salt, I'm going to tell you some other benefits. Yes, go ahead. Exactly. Well, I'm going to say that about the table salt. I'm going to get to that in a minute. Thank you so much. Digestion. Yeah. Actually, it only has 60. Actually, Celtic sea salt has about 60 trace minerals in it. But that's the second one that I was going to recommend. And I use that, and there's another one called real salt. Yes, hon? One gluten-free, Betty's gluten-free, oh, James is gluten-free. We've got 2, okay. 3, okay, 3 gluten-free. So we just want to make sure we accommodate you because I know we're serving something with crackers and we have gluten-free crackers on the side as well. All right, so Celtic sea salt would be my second choice. And the reason why is because, again, it's a mined salt. It's mined in like the UK, the area of Ireland and England kind of thing. And it has those 60 trace minerals in it. But now, a lot of times, about 15 years ago or so, people got really hyped up on sea salt, right? And so everybody, all of a sudden, all these companies, these Morton and Diamond and all these crazy companies decided they were jumping on the sea salt bandwagon. If we were going to buy sea salt, they were going to produce it. Well, there's a problem with this. Number one, because they over-process, okay? There's also a problem with sea salt, regular sea salts, and the reason what it is, it's called microplastics. Have you heard of microplastics? Microplastics are the residue of plastic that is left in the ocean when all this stuff has been dumped in our oceans for so many years. Plastic doesn't completely dissolve, and so there's many particles in there. So when they get the sea salt and they dry the water and they get this to grind the salt up, the sea salt has plastic in it. Do you realize that with foods that you eat throughout the course of a week, they say the average person eats approximately one credit card worth of plastic a week? Do you realize you're eating one credit? That's like you could chew on your Visa card and chew it down for dinner because you're eating one a week anyway. Well, then I guess you'd eat 2, right? Well, so I try to tell people that although there's a lot of minerals in sea salt, I try to tell you that, let you know that that does have a high amount of microplastics in it. And then we come to the infamous table salt. As my friend said already, yes. Oh, I'm sorry, she's counting. No. Hey, I thought she was raising her hand. I thought you had a question. No, it's okay. Listen, it's more of a priority. So, table salt. So we've got 84 minerals in Himalayan pink. We've got 60 in our sea salts. How many minerals do you think are in table salt? That would be the big goose egg, 0. And the reason why is because they process it, and they use some things in the processing that you're going to be very surprised with. The first is bleach. They bleach the salt. It is beautifully white, isn't it, by the way? It's beautifully white and beautifully bleached, okay? Our second thing that they use is aluminum derivatives. We've heard about aluminum toxicity, haven't we? Aluminum toxicity is when, aluminum gets stored in our brain because it does not expel. It's a heavy metal that doesn't expel. And what happens is there's been a lot of studies and autopsies done with people with Alzheimer's and dementia that have huge amounts of aluminum in their brain. So aluminum toxicity is real. We get it not only through ingesting with things like aluminum derivatives, we get it on our skin too. We said yesterday, our skin is our biggest organ. It absorbs everything. Things like antiperspirant, things that not deodorant so much, but antiperspirant. If it has antiperspirant in it, it's to keep you from sweating. It has aluminum in it. Aluminum oxide, I think. One of those, yes. Yeah, you know what? You'd have to check. I think a lot of times they use zinc in them, but I don't know about aluminum in those. I haven't ever really checked, but that's something for me to look into, James, because I think I want to share that as well, if that's the case. So you try not to use antiperspirant, but the other thing, too, is people cook in aluminum pots and pans. Aluminum is very inexpensive, and it's a very good conductor of heat. But the aluminum, when you heat it up, will leach into the food, causing aluminum toxicity. You'll ingest that, and that, of course, that is a buildup in your system. So I like to tell people stainless steel. We have at home surgical steel. Kathy and I do. Kathy does, too, because we are cut from the same cloth, right? We have surgical steel, but they are enormously priced. And I don't always tell people, go out and buy surgical steel, but I have to tell you it is the best that you can get on your thing. But stainless steel is really good as well. So I would tell you that stainless steel, if you have aluminum pots, I would tell you, what, you might want to just transition to some stainless steel pots. I think that would be good. So anyway, so I'm talking about salts. So let's tell you a couple of the other benefits of Himalayan pink salt, okay? It's a natural digestive aid. If you have a little bit of stomach issues, taking a little salt water with the Himalayan pink salt will help with your digestion. It's an air purifier. I am asthmatic. I shared with that last night when we were doing natural remedies. And I have a Himalayan pink salt lamp in my bedroom by my nightstand. It's an air purifier. In fact, have you ever heard of the Himalayan salt caves? Okay, what they do is they coat caves with this Himalayan salt. I'm sure if you went to the Himalayas, you could actually go in a real one. But they actually do this here to help people with respiratory problems, people with chronic bronchitis, asthmatic, things of that nature. They go in these salt caves and they can breathe again. They clears up completely because the Himalayan pink salt helps with respiratory issues. It's a natural sleep aid. It actually helps induce sleep. So if you have a little, now I'm not trying to get everybody all hypertensive here, but you know what? If you do have a problem and you don't have hypertension, well then, if you wanted to use a little Himalayan pink salt, I don't know that, this is not something that I've really researched that much, other than there has been studies that have proven this, but it will help as a sleep aid. So those are some of the benefits. It's very alkaline. It's very alkaline balancing. It has pH electrolyte balancing, natural digestive. Oh, it's antibacterial and anti-inflammatory. My blueberries are finally heated up. All right, so pretty much that tells you all about the Himalayan pink salt anyway. I was done, so I'm going to now add in, let me mix this up because sometimes it just sticks on the bottom a little bit. It settles, we want to get it, come on, get there. All right, here we go. So all I'm going to do, add my little cornstarch, and we are going to have some beautiful, thickened up already. Off, I can turn this off. It's done. Once you bring it to boil and add your thing, we have beautiful, I'd love to show you, but there's so many people here. I don't know if I can get them. Can you? Here we go. We just want to show you this. Actually, this is to go in the back anyway, so Ron can top our waffles with it when we have our samples. So here's our beautiful sauce. I trust you with my life. How's that look? All right. Moving right along. He's going to want this. We might need. Okay. Moving right along. So we are going to do now a cream of broccoli soup. And you're going to say, Carin, cream of broccoli? How are you going to do cream of broccoli without milk? Well, we are going to do it. We're going to start with what do you think? Broccoli. Broccoli, a wonderful cruciferous vegetable with many, many tons and tons of health benefits. A great way to put that in. We're also going to use a little onion, and this recipe calls, now I usually make cream of broccoli. I used to make cream of broccoli with carrots, onions, and broccoli. Now I use a little red pepper. It brings the color to it like the orange, but it adds a nice flavor. It's just a little different, but it's a good one. What are you doing? Does it look like them? No. Okay, so we are going to add in a little chicken-style seasoning. Now, what chicken-style seasoning is, it's a mix of herbs put together that actually kind of make almost like a chicken broth flavor. Not exactly, of course, but gives it that chicken broth essence. So I'm adding a little bit of that. I'm adding a little bit of garlic powder and another little pinch of salt here. And what I'm going to do is just add about a cup of water. Not a lot, but I'm going to steam these vegetables to soften. Okay, so we'll put that there. I'll take that so when Ron comes back, he can have this. And I'm going to get this started. I remember how to do it now. Power level up. All right, I'll mix this up. And there's not a lot of water in here, but what we're going to do is we're going to make the base of the soup, the cream base, okay? So all we're doing here is basically just softening our vegetables and having some seasoning with them. So far, so easy. Have I made anything complicated? Yes. By the way, soup is one of the easiest things you can make. You can use anything in your kitchen, by the way. This cream base that I'm making for you is great for any soup. And actually, I'm going to tell you, I use it very similar, a little variation in my cookbook for biscuits and gravy, okay? I thicken it up a little differently and make it a little thicker. But this is a great base for soups, anything that you need a cream sauce in. This is great. So we're going to let this heat up a bit, and I'm going to get you my cream sauce. This was all, I just couldn't fit it all in one tray. All the same recipe, but so we'll let Ron take that when he gets a moment. Now, Don. Don's a gem, isn't he? Thank you, Don. All right. So this cream sauce recipe we're going to do in the blender, and everything is going to go in the blender, and then we're just going to warm it. And we actually don't even warm it on the stove. What am I talking about? I'm just going to stick it in the pot, and it thicken up right away there. But you're going to see that I'm going to start with cashews. Now, cashews are a great creamy substitute for things that we're looking for a creamy base. I use cashews in things like my yogurts, sometimes my desserts. Cashews are they just really work well. Now, if you're a nut allergy, you have nut problems, then you could always use sunflower seeds as a alternative. But the cashews really work the best. You're going to see that I soak these cashews. Now, I soak these cashews for 3 different reasons. The first is pretty easy. Does anybody know why I soak the cashews? Why? because I'm mixing them up with, like, the masks kill me. I don't hear very well, but I read lips. But it's for a year now, I've been like having to learn. I'm like, hello, hello, I think I need a hearing aid. All right. So that is the first reason, culinarily, that softens the cashew, because we're going to blend this in the blender. We don't want to beat up our blender too much. By the way, the Vitamix has a 2.2 horsepower, is 2.2 horsepower, which is basically like having a lawnmower in your kitchen. It's pretty powerful. So it's going to blend these up. But there's going to be another reason, another reason why. The second reason that I soak my nuts is because they have a substance on them called phytic acid. Now, phytic acid, it's the same substance, it's an enzyme, right? And it's a protective enzyme that is on beans, grains, seeds, and nuts. Now, this is what I wanted to tell you. What happens when you don't soak your beans before you cook them? I guess. I like to say, this is my new way to say it. You get a little windy. How's that? Windy? Like it? Somebody told me that one time. They said it in a class. I asked her. She was from England. And I said, she was so proper. And I said, what happens, And I'm expecting somebody to say, you get gassy, right? She goes, you get windy. And I said, oh, I love that. So I'm going to say, you get a little windy, right? So you get a little windy, okay? And also, sometimes people get indigestion by not soaking things like beans and nuts. If you eat a lot of raw nuts, you can get a little indigestion, you can get a little windy, you can get a little discomfort, in your stomach. But now here's the most important reason why we soak our nuts, is because phytic acid actually blocks the absorption of certain, like potassium, iron, things of that, the magnesium. It blocks the absorption in our small intestines. Now, all of you, if you've eaten walnuts, if you've eaten almonds raw, you've eaten things, obviously you're still here to tell about it, right? But it is best to soak your nuts at least 2 hours or overnight. And that's because it will take out almost all of the phytic acid. If we're going to eat healthy, don't we want to get all those minerals, those things? We don't want to think. And of course, like I said, it's easier on your blender as well. But the fact of the matter is that the real reason is because the phytic acid blocks those absorption of those minerals. So I have them soaking here, but my husband so graciously gave me a little strainer here so I can strain them, and then I have a little bit of water that I'm just going to rinse them because of the phytic acid. So we just want to get that all off. And like I said, was it a deal breaker? You're all alive. You've eaten phytic acid before. But it's best to definitely soak your nuts. If you have the time. You know what I do sometimes too? It's a nice easy trick. I'll buy my nuts. I'll buy them in bulk because it's cheaper that way, of course. And then what I'll do is I'll soak them for, overnight. And the next day I drain them. I rinse them good. And then I put them on a baking sheet. And I just let them air dry. And then I put them in a baggie. And I store them in the freezer. By the way, you want to store nuts in your freezer or your refrigerator. Nuts have a lot of oil in them. Healthy fats, right? The problem is that oils can go rancid. Did you ever taste a nut that's gone bad? It's so bad, right? Well, nuts can go bad if you don't use them very quickly. If they're sitting on the shelf, remember they were on the shelf in the store. And then they're sitting, who knows how long they were there, and then now they're in your house. So the best way to preserve your nuts, put them in the refrigerator, put them in the freezer. I freeze my nuts. They last forever. All right, so we've got our soaked, drained, and rinsed cashews. I have here, this is a little bit more water than I thought. Okay, so I'm going to add about 2 cups of water here. And I'm going to add all of my seasonings. So we have onion powder. Let me see if I can, that came right out good. Some garlic powder, just a pinch. As you're following along, if you're looking at the recipe, all the measurements are on there. Salt, again, Himalayan pink. Oh, by the way, let me go back into Himalayan pink salt before I finish this recipe, because I'll forget. I'm all over the place, so if I don't tell you now, I'll forget it. Himalayan pink salt, the one thing that it lacks is it does lack a tremendous amount of iodine. You're not getting as much iodine as you may need. There's other sources of iodine that you can get, but what I do is I actually buy a good quality iodized sea salt, Celtic sea salt, and I mix it with my Himalayan pink. So you do too? But that's because she's like my sister. She's like my twin sister. We talk the same language. So what I do, I buy a really good quality salt, and I use about a quarter cup of the iodized salt to 3/4 of a cup, like for 1 full cup, and I just mix it together. And that's how we use it. It is weird. It's very scary, isn't it? It's, it's very scary, I'm telling you. All right, because I'm telling you, there's so many similarities with Kathy and I, it's incredible. All right, I'm using chicken style seasoning again. This is just going to bring us some nice flavor for a base of our soup. And I'm going to use, again, cornstarch as my thickener. Cornstarch is the easiest. Now, I'm not going to go into, so I have a lecture that I do on organics and non-genetically modified foods. However, I would tell you that corn is one of the most genetically modified foods, and without getting into all of the health problems that we face with GMOs, I would tell you that cornstarch, just look for a non-GMO brand, okay? Just because it's, again, corn, and just try to buy corn that has been not genetically modified, and especially if you can get it organic, that's even better. All right, so we got all our seasonings. I'm going to blend this up, and then I'm just going to add a little more water to our cream sauce. So let's get here. We're just going to blend. When you're blending nuts, I blend for at least 30 to 40 seconds in the high-speed blender. If you have another blender, you go ahead and blend it a little longer. You just don't want any grittiness, because we know soup is supposed to be creamy and delicious, right? And this is what we're trying to do. So let's put this on. This is a Vitamix. This is the Vitamix. This is, remember I told you the Cadillac? It's the costs like a Cadillac, but works like a Cadillac. I know people who have had other blenders. You can hear me, right, over the blender? That other blenders. So if you have something like a Ninja or a NutriBullet, those things, go ahead. Don't have to run out. But if you see that you want to get more involved in your cooking, I know people that, BlendTech is another one that people like. I've had people that have had both, and they always tell me they like the Vitamix better. I only know the Vitamix because that's what I was raised on, but I'm going to tell you, I can honestly say that I have not found anything that I've used that has been better. So let's get this. All right, I'm going to just add a little more water to this, because I think at this point our vegetables are steaming up. I think they're getting nice and softened. So let's just mix this. I mean, it's probably mixed anyway, but better safe than sorry, right? Let's just go. All right, and the reason why I added the water, the second batch of water at the end, was because nuts can tend to be a little foamy in your blender. And so you can blend it up, get it all mixed up good, and then add the rest of the water so it doesn't get too foamy on you, right? And now, let's check my soup here. Now, when I cook these vegetables, I put a top on it. And the reason why is you don't want all the steam to come out because your soup will be a little too thick. Then you just have to add water just to make it, thin it out a little bit. But, our vegetables look great, nice and colorful. And I'm just now going to add in my cream sauce. Now, cashews are amazing because cashews thicken when you heat them, but cashews also thicken when you refrigerate them. What kind of phenomenon is that? I don't get it. How can that be both? But for whatever reason, God did both. So they thicken up nicely when you start heating them up. Here, I'm just going to stir this soup up, and it'll thicken up nicely to have a nice, hearty cream of broccoli soup. Like, who here, who maybe is already a vegetarian, has missed cream soups, right? Or a more plant-based vegetarian. This is a wonderful, nice soup that you can have. I was telling Kathy, we had soup the other day. She had made a beautiful Tuscan soup. It was so delicious. And I'm going to tell you, I said to her, I could eat soup every day. I love soup. Soup is like soup is my favorite food, I would say. Like as a meal. Oh, I could eat soup for any meal. All right, so I'm just going to let this thicken up just a little bit on there, just mixing it up. But, oh, Ronnie. Can you hear me? Oh, Donnie's coming, not Ronnie. Thank you, Don. I got a new friend, Ron. I'm just saying. And this one, too. Thank you. That's good. Yes, that's all. All right, and we're getting nice and thick in here. I'm just bringing this up to temperature because it'll thicken up nicely. I'm trying to save them in the back for having to do this for me. So, okay. So far, I have a question. Have you learned something new? Everybody's learned something new today? 2 things new? Oh, she went like this. I'm like, she learned 2 things. That's a good day. Of course. Yeah. You know, I'm not blending it. I'm just leaving the broccoli. But absolutely. Listen, love the immersion blender. It's one of my favorites. It's up there with the Vitamix. I use it so many times. I love the immersion blender. We were talking about that today, and I have in my cookbook, I have 3 mayo recipes because I have one that's made with soy, one that's made with nuts, and then one that's made with aquafaba, which is the juice of the chickpeas when you cook them. And so I use that as an egg replacement. It uses oil, but it's really great. And I was just telling Kathy, the immersion blender works the best for that. You can do it in a blender too, but I love that immersion blender. I love that, love that, love that. All right. And of course for soups I use it a lot too. Because you know what? I can plug it in right by my stove and just go right in the pot. That's what I do. We're nice and thick here. So we're going to bring this in the back. A nice hearty soup. If you want to share it and show it, we can do that, but we're going to bring this in the back. Here comes Don again. All right, Don, you're hired. Betty, can you live without him? He's going to be on the road with me coming up. Oh, you can see there. Don, you're getting a look from the Ron. I don't know if Betty's going to give him up, though. I have a feeling. All right. We are going to do now a fan favorite. It's probably one of the most popular recipes in my cookbook. We're doing mac and cheese. Mac and cheese resonates with, I think, the masses, old and young. We have a testimonial, don't we? Would you like to share? What was your first name again? Dolores. Okay, Dolores. Dolores, can you hear Dolores? Do we have a microphone? Dolores, you don't mind sharing, right? You don't mind sharing about this. Okay, Dolores is coming up with the microphone. Here it is. We want you to talk on the microphone. Oh, we got 2. Well, somebody, whatever one's on is good. All right, Dolores, thank you. This is my friend Dolores. I just met her today.
Okay.
Okay, Dolores, go ahead, tell your story.
I saw Carin do this recipe on 3ABN, and I tried it, and it's absolutely the best mac and cheese. The cheese sauce is the best because of the coconut milk.
Oh, there you
Should I
go. She
tell
told
them
my
that?
secret.
Oh.
That's okay.
Anyway,
they're going to learn about it anyway,
It is
Dolores.
so
You're
good.
okay.
It is so good.
Isn't that cute? She came up to me and she said she saw me on TV and she tried the recipe and it was the best cheese recipe she had ever made. Isn't that nice? I love that. It was so sweet. Thank you, Dolores. It makes my day. I'm going to tell you, and I told this story and Dolores knows the story. So we were doing a cooking class. Have you ever heard of Newark, New Jersey? Okay, it is a little bit of a rough neighborhood if you're not familiar, okay? I am from New Jersey, but I am from South Central New Jersey, right on the Jersey Shore. I grew up at the beach, so I understand you people. I get it. I am now landlocked in Tennessee. It's a little different, but it's all good. So we're in Newark, New Jersey, inner city, urbanized neighborhood. I'm doing a cooking class. So this family comes, husband, wife, son, and daughter. Daughter was probably 14. Son was about 16 years old. Last place on the earth to be on a Monday night, right? With his mommy and his daddy, while his friends are out doing their own thing, he is out of cooking, plant-based cooking class, no less, right? So he's in the back of the room, you know, with his arms folded. You can imagine. You know, he's 16. I have a 16-year-old going to be 17 in March, coming up. Ooh. All right, coming up. I'm going to make sure I got that birthday ready, right? And so I can imagine being stuck at a 16-year-old, right? So I say I'm going to do mac and cheese. Now, the story behind this mac and cheese is my husband is from the South. He is a Tennessee boy. I am a northerner. He is a southerner. Mac and cheese, although enjoyed, is not a staple food like it is in the deep South. I just want to tell you, mac and cheese is like the staff of life for most Southerners in that area. He grew up on a good mac and cheese. Well, when we were courting, when we were dating, right? I said, okay, I cannot let my mother-in-law make a better mac and cheese than I. How do you win a man's heart? Is through what? Stomach, right? So I made the best mac and cheese. Now, this is before we were completely plant-based. We were vegetarians. We both grew up vegetarian. Well, I grew up vegetarian. He grew up eating meat, but at the time he was a vegetarian, you know. So I make this mac and cheese, and he's like, Carin, this is like a gourmet mac and cheese, because I put the northern twist on it, okay? So he has this gourmet mac and cheese. He loves it. It's his favorite thing. But then we really, really felt as though we really wanted to be more plant-based, and we were going to transition my recipes more plant-based. Now, what do I do with the mac and cheese? You know, I know he's a cheese lover, and I know he likes this mac and cheese. So I worked so hard, and I came up with this recipe, and I think it really resonates with most people. I'll tell you the ingredients as I go along, but this is the story with the thing. So that's how this recipe came to fruition. So the boy in the class, I tell him, and I start going over the recipe. By the way, again, this is another easy breezy, because everybody goes in the blender, and then we just thicken up our cheese, and we pour that over our macaroni. So as I'm doing the recipe, as I'm doing right now, I start with my cashews. There's a little bit of cashews in here because we want some creaminess. And so let me just rinse these over. And we're going to put them right there. All right. I have my cashews. I am going to use today some coconut milk. Now, this is canned coconut milk. It is not coconut milk that you get in the refrigerator. The reason why is because canned coconut milk is basically coconut and water, okay? Coconut milk in your refrigerator section of your Walmart or whatever is got a laundry list of things in there, stabilizers and things. Exactly. There's so many things in there. So I use canned coconut milk, not just because of that, because that's mostly only water too. It's really this much coconut, this much water. This is mostly coconut and mostly coconut. So we have nice thick coconut milk. Absolutely. Absolutely. This is definitely Walmart. I would go to and it's over by like the Asian foods. I would say buy it at Walmart. It's going to be cheaper. My sister is a Publix lover, and I like Publix too, but I can't afford Publix. Unless they're the buy one, get one free, right? They do a lot of buy one, get. Did you know that you don't have to buy two? You know you could only buy one when it's buy one, get one free, and you get it half price? Just a little tidbit if you didn't know that one. I learned. My sister taught me that. Okay. So we have some coconut milk. I'm going to put my seasonings in. We just have a little bit of onion powder. Let's get that in there. Some salt, again, my Himalayan pink. And something called nutritional yeast. Is everybody familiar with nutritional yeast? Okay, nutritional yeast, if you don't know what it actually is the yeast that's grown on molasses. And what they do is they take the yeast and they deactivate the yeast with heat, okay? So the yeast is no longer like a candida yeast that's growing, you know. They deactivate it, and they fortify it with B vitamins, especially B12. Now, B12 is one of those vitamins that we actually store in our liver. Some people store it 3 to 5 years. But a lot of times people, meat eaters and vegetarians included, can be B12 deficient. And I'm going to tell you why. You know, God has given us this beautiful green earth. By the way, God gave us a plant-based diet, didn't he? This is what he gave to us in Eden as our original diet. Do you think God made an imperfect diet? No. He did not make an imperfect diet. So if he did not make an imperfect diet, how is it that people are getting B12 deficient? That's why people say, oh, I'm not going to be a vegetarian. I'm going to not have B12, blah, blah, blah. You know, they say this. Well, the problem with B12 is that B12 comes from the microorganisms in the earth, okay? They grow up a seed. When you plant a seed, it gets its nutrients from where? The earth, right? The ground. The microorganisms and the microbes in there are what feed that seed. So as it takes all its stuff out of there and it grows into a plant, and then it grows some vegetable or fruit or whatever it's growing, and this is how we get our nutrition. We have damaged our earth so bad that we have killed so many of the microbes and the things of that in our soil that B12, is so lacking. Now, people say, well, if you eat meat, you can get B12. I'm going to tell you why you get B12 when you eat meat, okay? Because the B12 is in the soil. The first thing is that we are so germophobic in this world. When I was a little kid, guess what I did? I made mud pies. Now, I actually went outside and played. Imagine that. And listen, I wasn't even allowed back in the house until they called me for dinner, right? I had to go outside and play, come back in, and then go outside after dinner, after your homework was done, to play with your friends until the street light came on. And when the street light came on, you had to get home, because if you weren't home then, you were in trouble, okay? That's the rules, okay? That was quick, right? Got it through. So, B12, had my hands in the dirt all day long. Many of you probably have gardens, but like I said, which person here foraged for their food this morning for breakfast? Did anybody go foraging for your food? Did you, Ron? You did? Oh, he did not forage. There's nobody who's foraged for their food. None of us got our hands in that dirt today, did they? Well, this is why meat, who did? You did? You, oh, bravo. Yeah, look at that. You guys foraged. Did you get your hands dirty? Okay, good. Good. Let them get their hands dirty, Chris. Let them get their hands dirty. And the reason why is because that's where the B12 is. We absorb the B12. A cow, you can get B12 from eating meat. You can. I'm not going to tell you can't. It's a secondary source. The cow gets them. When he goes down on the ground, first of all, the cow is a vegetarian, and he eats grass, right? When he rips that grass, rips it to get that nice chomp of grass, do you think sometimes he gets a little soil in there? You think he chomps down on a little soil? He does. He's getting his B12 from the first source. And so he is a secondary source of B12. It is not our best source of B12. But because we have used pesticides and fertilizers, and we have ruined, and then the water comes from the ground and goes up into the clouds, and then it rains, and it keeps raining this bad stuff all over our world, we now lack in B12. But nutritional yeast has come to the rescue because he is fortified with B12. Hooray! Thank you, nutritional yeast. It is a creamy, nutty, cheesy flavor. This is going to be like our cheesy flavor for our cheese sauce. All right. It's not on there? What do you mean it's not on there? It's on there. Down at the bottom. Where is it? Whoa, a quarter cup. You're in the wrong one. We're on mac and cheese. Don is almost perfect. All right, it's a quarter cup. Okay, and then here is where my little tricks of the trade have come in. Well, first of all, this is not the trick of the trade. Again, cornstarch is another thickener. Again, like I say, when I buy something for the churches, I like to try to use it to its maximum capacity. So we're going to use cornstarch as our thickener. Use whatever thickener you like. All right, here's the tricks. Cheddar cheeses and things like that have a little sharpness to them. So I make sure that I have a good amount of lemon juice. I usually use about 2.5 tablespoons. I think it says 2 to 3. We use 2.5. I like that's our family favorite. 2.5. And my other trick. A lot of times people use pimentos, or you could use like a fresh red pepper. I'm an Italian. I didn't even tell you that part, because I am like garlic, olive oil, roasted red peppers. Roasted red peppers. I use roasted red peppers because I think they impart the most flavor, more than a pimento. And they actually give it that beautiful artificial orange color that we know and love. Like if we had mac and cheese and it was not artificial orange, we would think something was wrong, right? So we have our roasted red peppers. You can buy organic roasted red peppers at Costco. You can tell I shop at Costco, right? But you can get them in a jar at Walmart, anywhere you go. All right, so here, our roasted red pepper, and then, of course, just some water. We're going to blend this up. Oh, here's my top here. And again, about 30 to 45 seconds. Low, roll it up to high. And you'll see it transform before your eyes. We'll have some beautiful orange color here. Get that going. I want to share with you the macaroni that we're doing. I don't have time to talk about, everything, whole grains and whole, and things of that nature. Today, we are going to use a brown rice pasta. This is called tinkiata pasta. I don't know if you have it down here. I'm sure you do. Tinkiata, Kathy's confirming. I find this to be, I'm an Italian, right? I told you I was Italian. Pasta in my family is very sacred. Oh, I know Sophia likes pasta too, don't you? Didn't you say macaroni and pasta was your favorite? That if you had to be on a deserted island, you would just eat pasta, right? She did. I must be putting her on the spot. She was so talkative yesterday. She told me, I asked her, if you were on a deserted island and you could only have one food, what would you eat? She said, pasta. All right, so as an Italian, I've grown up in a household where pasta was like 3 and 4 times a week. So I'm very particular about my pasta, but I want to have a whole grain pasta. I hate whole wheat pasta. Hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it. You might like it, and then good for you. You can have my portion because it's too chewy for me. It just doesn't work. However, and I'm not a fan of gluten-free products because usually the texture is not right for me. Tinkiata is about the best gluten-free whole grain pasta. This is a brown rice pasta. I love this pasta, so I use it all the time because I'm getting my whole grain in it. I'm not using a processed grain. I love tinkiata. I can pass this around. You could take a picture of it so you have it on your phone. Tinkiata, health food stores, Whole Foods. Where else can I get it here? Some Publix. I've seen it in a Walmart once on my travels. So, they did? Oh, not anymore? A health food store would definitely carry it. But I do want to tell you, just so you know, most of the food that I've purchased for this cooking class has been at Walmart, okay? And the reason why, there goes Don again, Super Don. Okay. It's because I want to make sure that you understand that we can eat healthy and it can be convenient. We don't have to run all over the county trying to find ingredients. Every once in a while you might want to go to the health food store and maybe buy something special, but you buy it and then that's that once in a blue moon thing. If you had to go once every 3 months, that's not a big deal. And you probably wouldn't even have to do that. I don't even go to the health food store like that. But I'm going to tell you that honestly, it can be simple. That's why I want to let you know that these recipes you can purchase at Walmart. Even nutritional yeast, I haven't seen it. I think it might be at Walmart, but they have it definitely at Whole Foods. So you can always make a little trippy to Whole Foods or something, right? All right, here's our cheese sauce. I love about this recipe, it's not just for mac and cheese. You want to know why? Because we can have maybe a baked potato with some broccoli and some little cheddar on it, right? Or a little bit cheese sauce. How about this one, Super Bowl Sunday? Who would like a big plate of nachos with some cheese sauce, right? You could top it with some olives and some things like that, beans, whatever you want to do. Perfect cheese sauce, right? Nacho cheese. It's not yo cheese, right? All right. Let me get this on again, get this going. What else can we do this with this? Oh, you know what I like to do too? If I'm trying to be a little fancy, maybe I'll make some asparagus and just drizzle a little cheese sauce on top to make it just a little flavor, but giving it a very nice presentation. You have some fancy people coming over for lunch. Why not? This cheese sauce can be used for anything, but this recipe, I have it proportioned for a perfect 1 pound of pasta. Because that's how we make it. Yes. Good question. The answer is yes, you can freeze it. You can freeze it. In fact, sometimes what I do is if I'm trying to save time, now that didn't take much time at all, but if I don't want to use the blender a lot because I'm making other things when I'm having company or something, I'll make this and I'll put it in the refrigerator without heating it up. And then I'll just warm it the next day and it'll thicken up. Because you see it was watery when I have it, but we're going to thicken this up on our thing here, our little hot plate. So it doesn't take long, but you want to stir this. Cashews are naturally starchy. So we want to just, stir it occasionally. This is not something, it's not so thick that it'll stick to the bottom right away. But you want to just stir it occasionally. But I'm going to tell you, when you smell it, you're going to say, Dolores, am I telling the truth? It tastes like cheese, doesn't it? Dolores loved it. It was the first thing she came in and told me. I was so very precious. Thank you, Dolores. All right. We are getting close to our, but while I'm going to, see, I'm afraid if I start the next recipe, I won't pay attention to this, and I don't want to burn the cheese. Oh, okay, edamame or chickpea pasta. Wonderful whole food pastas. Love that. Thank you. Oh, okay, I can talk a little bit about cheese before we move to our next recipe. So most people are cheese lovers, aren't they? Most people, they say that it's much easier to not eat meat than it is to not eat cheese. Cheese is an addictive substance, okay? Cheese is addictive. So the average American eats approximately 30 pounds of cheese in a year. Do you realize that's half a pound of cheese a week? How much cholesterol, how much fat, how much sodium do you think we're getting there? Okay? You know, cheese increases our risk for breast cancer, ladies. Well, men too, but ladies especially. People with colic and digestive disorders, cheese is and lymphatic cancer, it's a contributor to those. A lung and lymphatic, I'm sorry. Of course, diets high in saturated fats. A saturated fat is a fat that actually, you know, when you put something in a cool, like coconut oil is a perfect example. Coconut oil, when it's hot, is liquid. Coconut oil, when it's cool, is solid. Fats that go liquid and hot, like butter, okay, is a saturated fat, okay? Saturated fats contribute to heart disease, the clogging of the arteries. All right. Of course, a lot of cheeses, they still have bovine growth hormones in it. Now, in milk, they say, oh, no bovine growth hormones. But you can't read that always on cheese packages. All right? There's a protein in milks called casein. Casein is a known carcinogen, cancer-causing agent. This could be in your cheese. Okay, but now this is where I'm going to lose some friends. If you are a cheese eater. If you're not a cheese eater, then maybe I won't lose you as a friend. But, all right, here we go. When they're making cheese, they use an enzyme called rennet. Rennet is what actually causes the casein to kind of curdle and protein in the milk to make this hard cheese. Well, this is the problem. Rennet is usually made from the stomach lining of a sheep, a cow, a goat, or a pig. Now, many of you may adhere to biblically clean meats and you don't eat pork. If that's the case, you may be eating pork and not know it. See, this is why I lose friends, because people love their cheese. There are other types of rennet that they use. There's one called microbial rennet. Fortunately, that's from mold. I'm not really interested in putting mold in my food. So that's the first one why I don't want microbial. How about genetically engineered rennet? Well, I can't tell you about GMOs today. I just don't have the time. We'd be here all night. But you don't want genetically modified foods. So I don't want genetically engineered rennet either. And then there's rennet called from thistle, okay, like milk thistle, which is vegetarian. It is the least used, it's the most expensive, and you're barely going to ever find it, okay? So, with that being said, cheese should not, now these are hard cheeses. I'm not talking about, cottage cheese and cream cheese, but I'm going to tell you that there are also things that we want to keep away from because of the dairy product in it, okay? But the rennet factor is, here's our cheese sauce, wow. The rennet factor for hard cheeses, you're taking a risk. Let me turn this off. All right, it looks like our cheese sauce is done, but I'm going to bring this around because I want to see my friends anyway. I don't get down on the thing. Look at that. What do you think? Does it smell like cheese? It smells like cheese. There you go. James, what do you think? It's cheesy, right? What do you think? Taking a whiff. I got a wow over here. Wow, that is great. Oh, that's okay. Ladies, you want to take a whiff? You can see at least our creaminess, our cheesiness. Go for no fingers in there. You guys are okay, right? Ladies, what do you think? Cheesy? Oh, cheesy, cheesy, cheesy. This gets me down here. I get to talk and walk too. Eli, you know what it looks like, right? Okay. Hey, I lost my table over here. I'll come right back over there. There we go. What do you think, Maddie? Good. Smells cheesy. Let me get over here so I don't miss you. Oh, wow. All right. Here we go. Easy breezy cheesy. You can't have some on your finger. It'll burn you. You want crackers. You know, actually, I use a very similar recipe, and I make a sliceable cashew cheese like this. And I use a substance called agar-agar, which is like a gelatin, but it's a plant-based gelatin. It's a seaweed. No, it'll be a little thicker, but it won't thicken like hard, okay? It's more of a sauce. This is a cheese sauce. You've seen it before, probably. Okay, ooh. You can freeze it. You can freeze it, absolutely. This will freeze. The only thing you might need to do is add a little water to it after it's defrosted, because sometimes when you have to reheat it, it'll thicken up a bit. Oh, there you go. I'm glad you made it, Rachel. All right, you guys, did you take a smell? A whiff? All right. I think I got Fatima. Oh, and Sharif. You don't like cheese? Well, then Sharif doesn't need to smell it. All right, and you know what it smells like. Did I get this table? No, you didn't. Just Don, he's my favorite, that's why. There's our cheese sauce. All right, well, now we're going to turn this over to my Ron, because we're having mac and cheese today. Here, I'm going to stick this right here. Oop. Did you put a little oil in there, Ron, just to make sure it doesn't stick, if you don't mind? Okay. All right. We are almost done. We need, guess what? I got to bring this in the back. Ooh, do you mind? If you could be so kind, Don. Don's getting an extra portion for his kindness. Just so you know, we're getting him a heaping spoon of whatever he wants today. All right. Okay, now we've got we got 2 more real easy recipes. We'll probably be done in about 5 minutes, because when we're done in about 5 minutes, that means we eat in about 10. How's that? Sound good? Yes. I did already. I told it. You didn't hear me? Oh, I didn't finish the story. The 16-year-old boy, right? So he's at the cooking class. I didn't finish it. Dolores, thank you for being on the ball, Dolores. See, I get so distracted. I'm all over the place. So he says to me, he raises his hand in the class when I'm making the mac and cheese. And I'm like, he's alive. He's alive. And I'm like, he has a question? He says, you're going to tell me that nuts and lemon juice and coconut milk is going to taste like cheese? I go, oh, but you just wait. I said, why don't you tell me after you taste it? So he agreed to that. He ran up at the end of the class and told me, he said, this is the best macaroni and cheese I ever ate. He wasn't plant-based, by the way. And that's what made it more even beautiful, is because he wasn't plant-based vegetarian, he was a cheese eater, and he was a 16-year-old boy. How am I going to get a compliment out of him, right? It was pretty impressive. So I was thankful that okay. Could somebody just yell into Ron and tell him I need a bowl? A stainless steel bowl? I don't know where it went. I had one here and it's gone. I think he borrowed it. Oops, that's all right. Okay, so what we're going to make now, if you see on the recipe, I think is the not tuna pate. Is that on there? Not tuna pate. Oh, this is so easy. Any bowl. Let's see. Let's take, this one will be good. I think we'll make that one. Oop, there's a little parsley in. Thank you. Look at how good this team is. I couldn't imagine how much juggling I would be doing if I had to do this all myself. I thank everyone so much for all their help, and especially for all of you for paying attention and participating with me. I do appreciate that. Yes, Carol, what? You don't have not tuna pate. You have to. Look on the back. Carol, flip your paper over, Carol. Charles, keep her in line. Keep her in line. Not tuna pate. All right. We are going to start out with some raw sunflower seeds. Don's rubbing off on Carol now. That's the problem. All right, I'm just going to drain. See, I've soaked these again. This recipe, like I said, if again, 2 hours or at minimum, and to get the phytic acid off. But it really, in this recipe, I want to tell you, we really need to soak these because it's going to help us, because we're not going to really add any extra moisture to this, a little lemon juice, but that's it. So we want these to absorb some of that water, and that's what they've done. Okay, so I'm going to put these in here carefully before I boop, 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 boop. Okay. So we've got sunflower seeds. Let me see if I can get these in there. There we go. There we go. All right. We've got some almonds. Now, I'm using today some sliced almonds. The reason why? Why do you think I'm using sliced almonds? Oh, my goodness. Don, do you want to teach up here, Don? Obviously, Don has got it all together. It's easier to blend. I used to use whole almonds. I don't know what I was thinking. And then one day I had the brilliant idea, why don't I just buy sliced or slivered almonds? My life. Because, listen, you get a lot of muscle action if you don't, okay? We're going to put our sliced almonds in there. And then we're going to put in a little bit of celery. I chopped the celery up again. You don't have to, but it makes it easier on the blender and makes it less work for you. Some onion or purple. I don't know why they call it red onion, because isn't it really purple? I don't know why. I don't understand. A little salt. Again, I have a bit of lemon juice. And then I'm going to use something called kelp powder. We talked about iodine. Kelp is a wonderful source of iodine. It's great for the thyroid. So I'm using kelp powder today. It's a seaweed. It's actually a red algae that's dried and ground up. If you've ever had sushi, it's like what nori is. It's like that seaweed, but it's just ground up. This is going to give us that little essence of fish taste. Because we're making a tuna pate, we want it to taste kind of like tuna, don't we? I want to let you know, if you're changing to a more plant-based diet, sometimes we can find wonderful substitutions that are delicious. But the fact of the matter is they're not going to be exactly the same for what you know. If you eat a veggie burger, does anybody here like veggie burgers? Yeah. Now, if you've eaten some, and it's agreed, I don't love all of them either, but some of you who have eaten a hamburger and have liked a hamburger in your past life, right? A veggie burger doesn't taste like a hamburger, does it? It doesn't. It's not. It's a veggie burger. However, can you find a veggie burger that tastes good? The answer is yes. So if you can make substitutions that taste good and give you that, you put some mayo on there, some lettuce, some onion, tomato, and you're enjoying that burger like you would enjoy a regular burger. It's the same thing here. If we can have something that can replace it, but a healthier option, we can enjoy it. If you're trying to make something exactly the same as the original, it's not going to be, because it's not the original. But if we can put that in our head, that it tastes good, and we would be happy to try it and use it as a replacement, well, then you've made 90% of the change already. All right, kelp powder, and I'm just going to blend this up. This one I'm going to use our handy dandy. This is a nice feature of the Vitamix, is the tamper. This tamper is actually like a plunger that goes all the way down to the blade but doesn't touch the blade. So I can actually mix around with it and get everything blended without worrying about, putting a spoon in there. I did that once. I took a wooden spoon to try to do, and I didn't think I was going that far, and I ruined a dessert. I was so mad because I was having company over, and I was making like a key lime pudding with like tofu, and I had no more left, and I ruined it by mistake. So that's why don't use a wooden spoon. Use the tamper, right? Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's when you break the tamper, yeah. Yeah. Use the lid because it won't go any farther. All right, here we go. So all I'm doing is I'm going to blend this up, and I'm just going to press this stuff down. I want to tell you a little bit about this recipe, too. This recipe, if you've noticed, nothing in this recipe is cooked. I used raw onion, raw celery, raw nuts, nothing, lemon juice. This is a fully raw recipe. Now, we want in our diet to have 50 to 60% of raw foods. Now, of course, if you have a health issue, you might want even more raw foods in your diet. But 50 to 60% for the average healthy person. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm going to take the lid off for a second, turn that off, and I'm just going to mix it up a bit because I want to make sure we don't have any nuts, chunky nuts in our tuna pate. All right. So when we want to eat, so it's nice to incorporate fresh fruits at breakfast, salads and fresh vegetables, uncooked, because when we cook foods at a temperature of about 118 degrees, they break down the enzymes and causes them to lose nutrition. So cooked foods, we get less nutrition. Whole foods, raw foods, we get more nutrition. So we want to incorporate as many whole foods as we can. So this is a nice way to have a little treat that on your plate that is a fully raw, and it doesn't have to be just a piece of lettuce, right? We can have something here. So let me put that back on. I just wanted to get those nuts there, and I'll just press them down, and we should be all right. Looks like we're done. You're going to be amazed at when you see this. You probably can't really see it in the blender much, but it kind of looks like tuna salad, doesn't it? If you like tuna salad, I think this is going to be a winner for you. And again, I love this recipe. In my cookbook, actually, I have one called tofuna. Tofuna is a tofu tuna. That's another great one. This one is not in my cookbook, but this one is more of a raw, like I said, a raw recipe. So we are going to just, I said enough great things about the Vitamix, but I have one complaint. One complaint. It's hard to clean. This canister especially, I love this canister. I have a bigger one at home, a wider one, that is easier to get the stuff out. However, I don't like it as much. I like this size for some reason. I like this shape. This is my go-to canister. So I'm going to get most of this out. You don't need to. You don't need to because we don't want to cook it because we want to keep it raw. So this is like what you would put on a cracker, on a sandwich, maybe a scoop on a salad, right? To have how you would use tuna fish if you made tuna fish with mayo. Mind you, there's no mayo in here. Pardon me? Like an hors d'oeuvre? Absolutely. Anything like that. I like mine on a cracker. That's how I like them. All right, I'm going to let my husband get the rest of that. Now what I'm going to do, look at all this mess I've made. I have a mess. That's all right. So I'm going to just I chopped up some parsley. I'm only adding a little parsley here. We've got celery in there and onion in there already in the mix itself. Parsley brings a beautiful freshness to this thing, and there's a lot of good health benefits to parsley and herbs. So we're going to mix that in. Fresh parsley, we just chopped it up. Yeah, I wouldn't use dried parsley. If you don't have fresh, yeah, you could just eat it without it. But it brings some color to it, too. I like to have a little bit of color. It's kind of gray. It looks like tuna fish, so that's kind of boring. But let's jazz it up with a little parsley. All right, here is our not tuna pate. We're going to pass that back to the kitchen with the Vitamix, but I also need something. I have a casualty. I didn't bring the towel. My boa. I didn't bring the borrowed boa. All right. So that is going that way. This can go that way. We can bring this back to the kitchen. And actually, we can bring all of that back to the kitchen. We can get so they can jump on those dishes. Because I have some Super Bowl people that want to get home, I'm sure. All right. Last and final recipe. This will take us 2 seconds because it's about the easiest dessert you can make. This is actually, thank you so much. This is actually so healthy. Yes. Oh, yeah, sure. All right. This is so healthy that you could even eat it for breakfast. I'm going to add a little sweetener because we're making it for dessert. But if you eliminate the agave, because we're going to be using some pineapple. This is a tropical chia pudding. Who doesn't like pineapple and coconut together? I don't think there's many people that that don't like Lucas, you don't like pineapple and coconut together? Oh, he likes it. I thought you were telling me you don't, because I said, who doesn't? He misunderstood me. It's okay. This is so easy. When I'm in a pinch, when people are coming over and I didn't know, all of a sudden they're like, hey, we're stopping by, and I got to make something quick. Beautiful. I have a can of crushed pineapples. Now, you could take a fresh pineapple and blend it up or put it in the food processor and crush it yourself, but why make your life hard? If you have a fresh pineapple, fresh is always best. But I'm using the juice and everything, right? I'm going to use a can of coconut milk. Again, we have coconut milk that you can get in any grocery store. I am adding a little coconut for a little texture. Here's my sweet. It is the raw blue agave. If you want, you can do the pineapple is sweet enough. You don't have to add the agave, but like I said, it's a little bit of a dessert tonight, so I go for just a little sweetener. And the important ingredient is chia seeds. Yes, Betty. This is full fat. I think you could probably, it's really because we want the creaminess and the moisture. If you wanted to use one in this recipe, it's no problem. It's the same with the cheese. You could use a light one. You could. But this is the full fat. I'm using the full gusto. And I'm going to use chia seeds. Chia seeds, they expand to like 15 times their size. So these little tiny guys are going to absorb lots of this moisture in here, all this liquid. And it's going to make it like a pudding consistency. You're just going to add that in, mix it up, and put it in the refrigerator probably about 2 hours. Maybe not even, but let's say 2 hours just to make sure. And what I do, and I toasted some coconut here just on the stove in a pan, toasted it up, browned it up, and I like to top it with that. We don't do this for the cooking classes only because they're so expensive, but a real treat is to chop up some nice macadamia nuts and put that on there as well. Yeah, because if I'm going tropical, let me go all the way to Hawaii, okay? I'm going and getting my macadamia nuts with my coconut and with my pineapple, right? I'm a Hawaiian treat. Like I said, this will thicken up beautifully in your refrigerator, and then you can put it in some serving dishes, let it cool in the refrigerator or thicken up, and just put that coconut on top. Folks, let me tell you a little bit about sugar, okay? We can pass this out, actually. Pass this back to my friends in the kitchen. Betty, do you call him Don Juan? Don's gone. Don's gone. Charles is in now. No, Don, actually, here, I'm not going to let you. There you go. I won't let you feel bad that we didn't use you. All right. Let me talk a little bit about sweeteners really quick, and then we're going to wrap it up with some questions, and then we're ready to eat. How's that? So sugar. In 1822, the average American ate 8.9 pounds of sugar in a year. But let us forward all the way up to the turn of the century, 1900. In 1900, the average American ate 65 pounds of sugar. Well, let's go to 1950. The ladies are home, husbands are working, ladies are making cakes and cookies, and boy, they are homemakers. We don't have a lot of women working outside the home back then. The average American ate 114 pounds of sugar. But why don't we make it more current? Let's go to the year 2000. Some of us were alive then, okay? Some of us. The average American in 2000 ate 148 pounds of sugar a year. That is because, for a few things. First of all, we have just gone to where we have corrupted our taste buds so much. And this, by the way, is processed, refined granulated sugar, okay? Not just sweeteners like fructose and things like that. We're talking about sugar. We have corrupted our taste buds so much that we desire things so ultra sweet. 148 pounds of sugar is approximately 43 teaspoons a day. That means if you took sugar in a jar and took a teaspoon, 1, 2, 41, 42, 43. How much is that in a bowl? You might as well, if you wanted, you just eat that with a spoon because that's your day, okay? Let me put this into perspective. So they process sugar, and we like to say it's sugar cane, right? Not all sugar is sugar cane, I'll tell you that in a minute. Sugar, has anybody ever eaten sugar cane, fresh, beautiful sugar cane? Okay, it's amazing, right? My husband and I were in India. We were climbing over a mountain. It took us 9 hours to get to the next village over the mountain. And after lunch, we had a little sugar cane to keep our selves up. We pretty much only ate about that much because let me tell you something. God has packaged sugar. Sugar is not the enemy. If you eat sugar cane, God has given you the fiber. He has given you the sweetener. He has balanced that. But you can only eat a little bit. You can't eat a thing. Well, let me tell you, how much sugar cane do you think is in 43 teaspoons? How many feet of sugar cane? Nobody knows. I'll tell you. 130 feet of sugar cane it takes to make 43 teaspoons of sugar. That means nobody here could eat 130 feet of sugar cane. Let me tell you something. God has given it to us. It's like a treat, but you can't eat a lot of it because God has made it that way. It is balanced. But you can eat 43 teaspoons because we do it all the time, okay? There are other options. Let me tell you, my favorite option is stevia. Food's ready. Okay, am I going to tell you about these sweeteners in rapid speed? How's that? My favorite is stevia. The reason why is because stevia is not a sugar. It's an herb. Stevia is no glycemic. It doesn't raise the blood sugar. It is a great thing. Now, some people don't like stevia. They say, oh, it has a little aftertaste. I actually use liquid stevia in my things, and I find it to be so much more palatable. If you don't have fresh stevia, which is off the stevia bush, and dried, and mix it in like with your tea or whatever to sweeten your tea, I use the liquid stevia. We have maple syrup. We've got coconut sugar. There's lots of options. Dates are a wonderful way to sweeten things. You can soften dates in hot water, blend them in your blender, and make date syrup that you can use as a liquid sweetener. It has all the fiber and the nutrients and the minerals and the vitamins of a fruit, okay? There are lots of sugars. I don't want to go into too many, but honey is a wonderful thing, except for, remember, honey and maple syrup are, although natural and unprocessed, by humans, they are high on the glycemic load. So if you're a diabetic, please be careful with those. But they are nutrient rich. They've got wonderful qualities. I don't want to take too much time. I do want to tell you, though, that most sugar in the United States is not sugar cane. It is sugar beet sugar. Sugar beets are 96% genetically modified. That means that you're not going to get a sugar beet in this country that is not a genetic modification. It is very inexpensive and cheap. Even when you look at the sugar in Walmart, one of them, Domino sugar will say pure cane sugar. If the word sugar is on any packaged food, right, and it doesn't say cane sugar, pure cane sugar, organic cane sugar, if it doesn't say the word cane, then it's a sugar beet and you're getting a genetically modified food. Folks, can I answer any questions? Anything? Not when we're going to eat, because that question is in a minute. Yes, go ahead. I'm not a fan. I don't use that much of the processed stevias. I use the fresh stevia leaf when I want to sweeten like a tea or something. I do use the liquid stevia. I buy an organic liquid stevia. I think that it is. I don't know that much about all the all the junk that they put in them, but I find that the one at Trader Joe's is one of the best tasting, and it has the least amount of junk in it. So just check it out, and if you decide to use it, you can use it. There are other sweeteners out there that are really a blessing. Go ahead. Oh, we had that question today. I have monk fruit at home to bake with and things like that. I haven't used it yet because I don't bake that much. So I have it. Everybody tells me about it. It's supposed to be good. It's low glycemic. I think it's no glycemic. No, it's low. It's low or no? No, it could be no glycemic. So it is a great option. I have not heard anything bad about it. So anyway, Monk fruit. Monk fruit. So it is good. It works great. Oh, great. Anything. Does anybody have any other questions? Oh, I have one right back there. You know what? I use deodorant, but I use a natural deodorant. I don't use antiperspirant. I figured, you know what? I don't care. If I'm a little sweaty, you're going to have to live with it, okay? But, of course, I do use deodorant because then I'm not stinky. I don't want to be stinky. But if I'm a little sweaty, I don't care. And I'm not really a person that, you know how sometimes people get very sweaty. I don't know what to, since I don't use it, I never really researched what to use for antiperspirant, but you can use natural deodorants. They even have them at Walmart, natural brands that don't have antiperspirant in them. So try that. If it's too much, then you might want to figure out, maybe go online and see something, but I don't really have a good answer for you. I'm sorry. People say that, but I don't know if that's really what will stop the perspiration. I'm not quite sure. And it worked? Yeah, like you got to dry it. You got to stand like this for like 5 minutes, you know? You sweat too much. Got you. Yes, Rachel. People say lime. Put some lime there. Anyway, folks, wait, before you do that, I want to, well, you can go ahead. Why don't we have a word of prayer? But before we have a word of prayer to bless the food, first of all, I want to thank the Fort Myers Seventh-day Adventist Church for so graciously having us here. It was such a blessing. This is, like I said, it's so exciting to be back on the road. We pray that COVID keeps going out for 2021 so that we have this opportunity to share our program and our knowledge with other people around this country and around the world. We thank you so much. Folks, I want to thank you as well for coming out on a Super Bowl Sunday. It's been a blessing to get to know some of you. I happily will answer any questions for you after or while you're eating. I'd love to get some feedback. Also, too, I'll do a little commercial. If you're interested, I happily will sign your book. If you don't want my signature, you don't have to get that. But get the book at least. You don't have to get me sign it, but get the book. I think you'll enjoy the recipes. I prayed about them, and that's what God put in the book. So I thank you very much. God bless you all, and let's have a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you again, Lord, for this opportunity to be here. And we ask you, Lord, please to bless the food that we're about to eat. We thank you for those who have helped here and helped in the kitchen and helped with this program. And Lord, we ask a special blessing on them. Again, Lord, we thank you. We praise you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you again. God bless you, everyone.